A group of people appear on the doorstep of the house. The blond man smirking that they have finally found the house they were looking for. The gang leader rudely informs that this is the world of apocalypse, and there is no place for civilized world, holding a golf club in his hands. The girl asks not to be judged for choosing to be strong, because she is just a weak woman. The guy lying on the ground was screaming in fear, not understanding what they all wanted from him. The blond guy hit him with the club. Ice Age, 28 weeks later. Human nature is frozen in this ice as well. Someone is walking through the snow in heavy spiked boots, leaving footprints behind them. This person's cheeks, hair, and some parts of his body are already icy. He forcefully trudges through the ice and snow that has taken over everything around him. Exhaling out a huge cloud of vapor, the young man with glasses looked around him. It seemed that this place was still unexplored. Food and fuel, which used to be easy to obtain, had become extremely valuable resources in the current times. The ice looked quite thick. He stood and looked down, thinking that the ice would support his weight. Suddenly, something strange began to happen. Everything shook. He felt the ice under his feet cracking and splitting. Could it be an earthquake? But how could it be possible? Why now? The ice began to crumble. This frozen world, it's as if God is telling us that humanity is as fragile as thin ice and very vulnerable. With a sudden lightning-fast reaction, he pulled out a pickaxe and tried to hit the ice floe with it to get a grip. All he could think about was making sure it didn't break. Right now, his life depended on it. The Kirk hit the target, but it still couldn't break the fall. Slowing down wasn't going to work. Snow, ice, and the young man was rapidly flying downward right onto some building that was at the bottom. There was a lot of snow at the bottom. If it wasn't snow but ice, the guy would have definitely died from falling from such a height. Lucky him. Suddenly he notices a huge white something with 4 eyes and huge fangs. This creature is called a white skin, and it preys on humans. Lucky to have survived the fall, however. Looking ahead, the guy realized, this luck isn't worth it. He ran with all his might away from the monster wherever his eyes could see. Everything trembled. The monster at full speed rushed after the guy. There's almost no chance of getting out. It's a disaster. Maybe this is his end, thought the guy while the white skin caught up with him. There was only a little bit left and it would be bad luck. Suddenly there was a cracking sound and a large icicle, the size of a block, hanging directly above the monster, began to fall. The ice block at full speed stabbed straight into the head of the white skin, piercing it through. Perhaps the noise had caused the stalactites to loosen. Still, it had saved his life. There was a loud cracking sound. Suddenly other blocks began to fall off too and tumble down. The young man only wanted to relax as suddenly the situation began to gain momentum and turned even more dangerous. The only thought that ran through his head when he turned around and saw what was happening was that it was very bad. Everything was crashing and falling with a rumble. The snow from the top of the clump sprinkled in heavy piles straight down. The guy who thought he had gotten past all the threats was hit by an avalanche. It seemed to him that this was where his journey would end, that this was where he would be buried alive. He was almost resigned to it. Snow and ice filled the entire space where there had been a path of retreat not so long ago. Some glowing creature that had appeared out of nowhere seemed to come calling for help. Flash, sparks, lightning, something like an electric current touched the guy. He felt something unusual that passed entirely through him, an inexplicable energy. The young man didn't realize exactly what had happened, getting up from the pile of snow as if nothing had happened. A strange mark was left on the boy's neck, which emitted a blue light. Mo had been outside for a long time. The time was just right for him to return. He wouldn't be returning empty-handed today. A candy bar had been found in the piles of snow. A small victory. A tall building, frozen to the point of forming ice on its surface. A young man standing at the very bottom removed the manhole cover leading to an underground passage. It was the only remaining way home at the moment. The cover removed, the lad lowers a long rope to climb down it. There's no telling how long this life will last. People freezing in tents. Compared to the outside world, the situation in the building is also pretty bad. When the disaster happened, many people were trapped in this building with no way to leave or get provisions. Guy couldn't imagine what all those people would do when supplies were scarce. In the current realities, no one could guarantee that they wouldn't step out of line. A long corridor with no one in sight on the horizon. Patrols haven't started today, and that pleases Mo. And here comes the long-awaited door. The young man rushes home at full speed. A cute blonde girl with her hair gathered in 2 bunches jumped out to meet him at the door. The girl's name was Xiao Ming. She ran towards the young man with open arms and was clearly happy to see him. The boy was very surprised that the door was unlocked, and he asked Xiao Ming why it wasn't locked. The girl said with a smile that she just wanted to see him soon, hugging the guy tightly. Xiao Ming was indignant, saying, didn't he want to see her quickly too? but the guy embarrassingly admitted that he wanted it as much as she did. Still, the door should have been locked. The guy voiced his concern while Xiaoming resented that the girl was more important than some door. The guy took out the candy bar he had found earlier and held it out to the girl. She asked in bewilderment what it was, but soon realized that it was chocolate. Xiaoming spread a smile, kissing the guy and thanking him for the trophy. She asked if this chocolate bar was the only one the guy had, and he told her how hard he had gotten it, that it could have been eaten. He advised Xiaoming to eat it quickly while he had the chance. The girl pouted and squeezed the chocolate bar in her hand so hard that it broke. The young man sat by the fireplace. Watching the fire, he thought about everything that had happened. He hadn't been able to find proper food for days now, and that was too bad. Earlier, they had tried to plant seeds together, but nothing had sprouted. If one eats the seeds, there is no more hope. But if one continued on like this, everyone would just go crazy. If the monster meat wasn't poisoned, the people in the building wouldn't have to live in supervised starvation. At least the fat from these monsters is very good as fuel and burns perfectly. Thinking about the fact that they won't freeze to death in this icy world, he suddenly notices the date on his alarm clock. Today is Valentine's Day. He'd completely forgotten, and no wonder in these conditions, putting himself in danger every day, you can forget anything. Just as he was about to apologize to Xiaoming for forgetting about the holiday, he suddenly discovered that she had disappeared somewhere. A knocking on the door in a certain order was heard. It was Xiaoming's signal. But why did she leave the house? The guy sincerely didn't understand what she was doing. The door opened. From around the corner, a bat flew out at the young man. He couldn't react quickly and fell to the floor. A sharp blow to the face. A man named Lu DeLong smirked and wished the boy a Merry Christmas in a sarcastic manner. The man was clearly pleased with himself. He only asked if the guy was surprised that they had come to his heart's content. Xiao Ming started yelling loudly that the man had hidden all the food and that he wanted to trick her with a piece of chocolate. The girl continued to yell loudly at the guy and accused him of bringing a backpack full of air. The blonde guy picked up a golf club and hit it with all his might on the floor. He said he felt sorry for the young man as a human being. He said that this was a world of apocalypse and there was no place for civilized peace here. What girl would go after someone who can't support her? Weak men have only two choices, either to depend on the strong or to become the prey of the weak. That was the message the bandit tried to convey to the guy. The man has only one condition. The guy must give up all his food. However, he did not understand what to do in this situation, because this chocolate bar was all he had managed to get for a few days. The man swings his club and says that since the guy refuses to depend on the strong, he will become the prey of the weak. Punch. The guy doesn't want to give up, just not like this. That's the last thing he'd want to do. He wants to live. Suddenly, everything has changed. There's some kind of office around. The young man comes to his senses and opens his eyes. He yells the name of that blonde-haired blonde man loudly and gets up from his desk. However, what is going on? How did this happen? Where are Lu DeLong and Xiaoming? Why is he still alive and completely unharmed? The guy himself couldn't find the answers to his questions. The city looks like normal. No ice and snow. 28 hours into the global ice age. He's actually resurrected. It's not an illusion. It's all happening for real. But he's resurrected just as he's working overtime, surrounded by a lot of unfinished reports. How ironic. It's just not clear why exactly one has to work overtime, as if the body does it instinctively. 24 hours into the global ice age, the city looks like business as usual. Protests continue in the city of Queens. The police department has deployed all forces to maintain order. All of Manhattan's elite entertained at an exclusive party. Brooklyn gangs continue to run rampant on the dirtiest streets. No one in the city knows what's coming, except for one man who got his chance. Everyone takes pictures of the northern lights, thinking only that it's beautiful, and yet it's a sign of an ice age that no one suspected to check out. The only person who could call a guy at a time like this is a frivolous blonde girl. The same Xiao Ming, Mo's girlfriend who chose to side with the bandits. He was just dazzled by her pretty looks. Because of the way she acted, he decided to put an end to it right now. As soon as the call started, Xiao Ming immediately said about the northern lights. Following that, she said that she had spent all the money on her credit card and asked to borrow some, to which Mo only told her not to call him anymore and that they were breaking up. Xiao Ming tried to ask about what happened and why Mo was acting like this, but the guy dropped the call, after which he, without any hesitation at all, deleted the girl's contact from his phone. This was his second chance, a chance to do the right thing. He swiftly went forward, contemplating his future actions. All women who could harm Mo would be frozen in the ice of the coming apocalypse. Brooklyn. The city at night with the northern lights in the background. It looks really beautiful. Another chance, and this time the guy knows exactly what needs to be done and will be able to prepare well. In a past life, or rather in a previous loop, Within 24 hours before the ice age, the temperature will slowly begin to drop to the freezing point. There are only 28 hours until the world freezes over. As the temperature drops, people will begin to realize the problem, and soon society will fall into complete chaos. Mo still has some time to gather supplies, but there's only 1 hour left for some sort of foray into the city. And besides the usual supplies, in the chaos that has begun, he needs something to help him defend himself. Like a gun, for example. Police officers driving by thought something was wrong with the guy, and he looked suspicious. A male police officer got out of his car and yelled that the guy should stand still and not move. His young partner joined in with shouts of hands up, and together they ran at Mo with guns drawn. The young partner radioed that they had located the robbery suspect. The neighborhood is really rough since they mistook Mo for the robber. They asked what was up the guy's sleeves. He raised his hands and pulled a cell phone out of his pocket. Noticing that there's no time left on the timer, the hero realizes that he can't waste time with the cops right now. The guy just hopes that after the search, they will let him go and everything will be over. So he patiently does what the law enforcement officers ask. The older cop teaches the rookie that it's not a good idea to approach the suspect, it's dangerous. The younger one demanded Mo show the contents of his bag, pulling all of his belongings out of there. Mo blubbered, trying to explain that he was just a regular rank-and-file employee at a regular company. He started to pull out his cell phone, but the policeman mistook it for something else. A younger coworker yelled in panic that the guy had a gun and pointed his gun at him. There was a loud bang, the bullet flying swiftly toward its target. It flew past city vistas, buildings, roads, and the northern lights that the entire city was now admiring. Would his second chance to continue living end here? No, not like that. He won't give up. Mo wants to live. A pulse of energy, sharp as an electric shock, pierced through the guy's entire body. A blue glow appeared around Mo as the bullet fired by the policeman continued to fly towards him. The policemen didn't realize what was happening. They were gripped by an inexplicable terror. The guy, on the other hand, could now clearly see the bullet, could make it out even at a great distance. Time seems to have slowed down. Something truly amazing happens. He dodges the bullet at the last moment. It doesn't look like an illusion. The policeman is soaking wet. Mo yells that the officer lives on his tax dollars and now he's shot his taxpayer. Overcome with time, Mo resolutely went forward with the thoughts that he has no time to waste on such a dumbass. The cop fired another bullet towards the guy, not realizing what else to do in a situation like this. The shell casing falls with a clatter and hits the ground. There is a metallic rumble. As if by magic, Mo, at great speed, ran up to the young policeman and hit him in the face with all his might. He flew back quite a distance. His senior colleague didn't seem to have fully realized what was happening. When he turned around, trembling with fear, he saw the body of his partner pressed into the stone. The man screamed in fear and incomprehension of what exactly was standing in front of him, and what had happened in general. Mo, surrounded by blue energy, continued to steadfastly walk forward without stopping. He himself didn't understand exactly what had happened, but he still didn't have time to deal with it. He needed to move on. After all, the city, which was covered by the northern lights, will soon turn into a lifeless ice desert. A senior officer radios in that his colleague has been wounded and the suspect has fled. The service pistol was also lost. The man repeated the message over and over. The flash of blue energy traveled farther and farther away from the scene at breakneck speed. Mo was flying through streets and roads, bypassing great distances in seconds. He ran home because he didn't know where to go anymore after everything that had happened. He crouched on the floor, trying to catch his breath and come to his senses. Fresh memories were swirling around in his head. Mo kept wondering if what had happened was real and how he had managed to pull it off. He pulled out the gun he had taken while the senior officer was in shock. Pointing the gun at himself in the mirror, he wondered if he should try again. Shot, a deafeningly loud sound and a shell casing flying out. The guy didn't hesitate at all. Blue glow again, time slowed. Mo concentrated on the bullet. The guy shifted at a tremendous speed. A blue haze engulfed everything around him. The bullet ended up in the palm of his hand. Mo was convinced that he had gained superpowers, but only just frost appears on his body. Perhaps it was due to the high speed that the young man was now able to utilize. Like a supersonic airplane, this power was directly related to speed. Considering what Mo already knows about the future, this superpower would help him stay one step ahead. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. But who could have come this late? It was the landlady of the apartment. It seems that she heard a noise in the apartment and decided to check what was going on. The woman immediately asked if it was the sound of gunfire. Looks like the guy's going to be in trouble now. Responding to a message from the TV, the guy said that was where the sound was coming from. But the remote was broken and he couldn't switch. The TV was reporting a robbery at a convenience store. The security here is lousy. Mo thanked the landlady, Mrs. Fang, for her concern as he walked her out of the apartment. She only advised him not to overdo it at work. The door of apartment 409, where Mo lived, closed. Now there were important matters to think about. The issue of provisions was on the agenda. How could this problem be solved? The landlady mentioned the nearest supermarket. It should definitely have everything needed for survival. It was time to go out and make supplies. Now Mo had a concrete goal. The cute-looking saleswoman was clearly feeling tired. There were cameras everywhere in the store, but it didn't bother the guy much at the moment. The main thing now was to gather supplies. As he approached the shelves of the store, he quickly took stock of what he needed. Then he flew out lightning fast, picking up what he needed on the way, through all the racks and showcases. Everything happened so fast that the girl didn't even notice that something was happening at all while she was yawning. Suddenly, the cash register itself began to print a huge check, for several meters exactly. The saleswoman looked at the check, which was still being printed, with no end in sight. Was anyone shopping right now? Mo left a message on the receipt. He wrote for the girl to go home and not be afraid. The sales clerk didn't understand what was going on. First a mugger, now a lunatic as well. Strange day, the girl thought. The green-haired guy with glasses had a gun with him. Another one came in with him. The green-haired one apologized snidely and put the gun to the poor salesgirl's head. He shouted that now was the time for robbery, imagining himself to be a badass. However, that wasn't going to happen today, as Mo showed up outside the store and heard the robbers screaming from afar. The gun, as well as the guy's body, were covered with a layer of frost, and steam was flowing around. Something very tall and cold suddenly appeared on the doorstep of the store. The second robber looked at the door in shock and told his partner to do the same. Some monster with many eyes and teeth in its body entered the store. It got really cold. The green-haired guy clearly wasn't expecting this. When he saw the monster, he became terrified. The guy with the gun started shooting at the monster in panic, bullet after bullet. However, the bullets just flew through the monster without causing it any discomfort. The guys realized that the monster was invulnerable. The creature reached out its arms to grab the green-haired man. The huge palm gripped the mugger whole and ripped him off the ground. The girl panicked and grabbed her phone in time to capture what was happening in front of her eyes. The video reached the police department. They watched the situation from their phone screen. A junior officer said it's been popular lately. Does it look like it's over? No. It looks like it's an emergency message from the government. The officer says an alarm went off. The public address system started transmitting some kind of signal. Everyone realized something had happened. Mo showed up at the door of the Department of Homeland Security, a cloud of vapor around him. The guy looked out the window and realized the moment had arrived. It had begun. The alert system was transmitting a signal through all channels. The authorities asked not to leave the house, close all windows and doors, do not go outside under any circumstances. The cold wave is slowly approaching. The first to be hit was Brooklyn. 58 building in a new neighborhood, ordinary apartments. We're getting signals from the Department of Homeland Security. Officers speculated as to what would cause Homeland Security to intervene. And now that they were involved, how serious was it? A girl in a medical gown smokes a cigarette while a security alert spins on her phone. No mishaps this time, thought Mo. Now he knows exactly what to do. A man in a fur jacket takes a drag on his cigarette and asks his subordinates if the hostage is ready to talk. A blue-haired guy with a wounded nose presses himself into the wall, saying he doesn't know anything. His hands are tied and he has no clothes on his body at all. A man with a cigarette sarcastically asks if his words are true. Apparently the answer is already known in advance. He holds out his phone with the guy's social media post. The photo shows him in the same room as the girl. She is unconscious, most likely under some kind of substance. She's the boss's daughter. The guy was crying and swearing he didn't know anything while the man leisurely smokes a cigarette. The bandit remarks that scum like this guy can only hope for the mercy of God. He forcefully pulled the guy's arm out and placed it on the table while the wounded guy screamed in fear. Stabbing. The man counted something that looked like fingers with a smile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What to do with this guy now? That was exactly the question the gang guy had asked Luo. The gangster ordered him to find a boiler and drop the guy right in there to pay for his sin. The bag went down. The guys carrying it wished him nothing but to rest in peace. The guy in the hat wondered, what if the boiler blows up? It looks pretty old. But the other guy just hurried him up, said Brother Luo was waiting for them. Something's wrong. The first bandit looked fearfully toward the boiler. Suddenly there was an explosion. The boiler shattered into pieces and threw the bandit far away. The red-haired man went to help his colleague, saying that he had jinxed them, but the guy in the hat was obviously thinking of something else. At the same time, Mo was already finishing up his structures to provide sustenance. He was screwing a screw into the structure. Sighing a sigh of relief and sitting down on the floor, surrounded by crates of plant seedlings, he finished the frame for growing plants. With these supplies, he would be able to last long enough without going outside. But even that wasn't enough. He needed to get more. The supplies will run out, so stable self-sufficiency is the key at the moment. Mo's goal is a room that will supply him entirely. The freezing has been going on for almost an hour now. Mo needs to speed up a bit. This time is what his life depends on. There is a knock on the door, but it's unclear who could have been brought in at such a late hour, especially under the current circumstances. Now the guy has a feeling of déjà vu as he opens the door to this apartment. There was a security guard standing on the threshold. They apologized for being distracting at this hour. The guy asked the senior officer what was going on and what made them come here at this hour. They said on the air that the temperature outside had suddenly dropped and the heating wasn't working. The guards were afraid that people wouldn't pay attention, so they came in person to warn the residents. Something similar happened last week. At that time, the heating was out and not repaired. By the time the guy took it upon himself to fix the broken one, it was completely trashed. You can't make a mistake like that, especially now that you need to fix it all as soon as possible. Mo asked to be taken to his place, saying that he could fix everything on his own. The door of apartment number 409 slammed shut. The place had become very crowded lately. The guards asked where the guy was going, and he asked if the boiler room was this way. The guard said that the boiler room of this house was on the basement floor, so he had to go down to the basement. Mo remembered the landlady. Mrs. Fang had mentioned it. The boiler room should be upstairs. The guy already thought he had gotten something mixed up, but he stayed alert and was very careful. The guards and the lad reached the place. The older guard remarked that it was really quite cold in the basement. Mo thought that this haze looked a bit suspicious, while the guard started asking him something. Mo did some manipulation and touched the metal casing of the boiler. There was some strange blue liquid on the metal, and it also got on the guy's hands. The junior guard asked if everything was all right, if there was any problem. Suddenly, something that looked like a monster began to grow rapidly and increase in size. The senior guard was soaking wet with terror, not understanding what was even happening. The unidentified monster had grown to a huge size. In the middle of its body was a huge mouth. Mo knew he had to do something about it. He decided to use his superpower. At full speed, with all the strength he had, the guy rushed forward to protect his acquaintance. It happened just in time because the monster was about to grab him. And one more second and old Joe could have lost his head, but Mo was in time. The door leading to the landing was still open. As long as the guy was moving at this speed, they had a chance to escape. Something didn't seem to have gone according to plan. The monster was quickly catching up with the guy. But Mo didn't understand how the monster could keep up with him since he had a super high-speed ability. Maybe because he was carrying Old Man Joe, his speed had slowed down. The guy sincerely apologized to his acquaintance, however. He had something dangerous to do. Mo was forced to throw the guard right through that door to save him. He threw him with all the force he could. It was dangerous, but there was no other way out. The guard flew at full speed right out the door. Everything was happening so fast that he didn't realize anything at all, but the important thing was that it worked. His body flew at tremendous speed through the entire distance and out the door. However, Mo was still in danger because the monster was already very close by. The monster had caught up with the guy and was close enough to eat him, but it miraculously didn't happen. The guy, breathing heavily, thought about what to do next. He was exhausted, but he couldn't give up now. A white monster with a huge bunch of eyes, breathing heavily, was muttering something terrifying. It seemed to be related to the guard. At least that's what the guy thought. But why? Mo only realized that he needed to get to the bottom of all this soon. When he was carrying old Joe on his back, the monster was able to catch up to him. But once he dropped him, everything changed immediately. But now, without him on his shoulders, he was faster than that huge and terrible monster. But wondered if there could be some condition that made his abilities ineffective. The monster continued to catch up with the guy. Just as he was about to strike, Mo finally remembered his strength. What could be known for sure was that this condition had nothing to do with the monster. So it should probably be related to Old Man Xiao or something else. When Mo threw it, something strange happened. A similar energy emanated from him when he used his superpower earlier. There were pebbles everywhere. It suddenly hit him. He realized what the problem was. In the past, when people faced monsters, they had no chance of surviving. And when they see them, they only think of escape and fear and panic in their minds. It's completely different now. If his hunch was correct, the former prey could also become the hunter. Mo picked up a pebble from the ground and placed it in his palm, filling it with energy. He gathered all his power and released the stone towards the monster at a tremendous speed. His hunch turned out to be correct. It was exactly as he thought. His ability only works on targets covered in energy. As long as they are covered in energy, he can accelerate. With acceleration, the kinetic energy of objects increases. Even a small stone accelerated to a certain degree could have the power of an electromagnetic cannon, and that stone hit the target accurately with tremendous force. Something went wrong. Blue liquid streamed out of Mo's eyes and nose. There was also a blue liquid on the guy's arm. He assumed it was blood. The eyes continued to fill up with this liquid. The guy felt very sick. He felt nauseous. At the same spot, he collapsed without strength on the cold ground, already covered with ice and snow. All he could think about at that moment was how cold it was. The rescued old man appeared in the distance. Mo tried to call out to him. The guard who had just recently been rescued by the guy was yelling at him to keep his eyes open. Some people were informing each other that there was an insanely strong wind outside, and the guy couldn't be taken to the hospital. The doors are frozen shut and won't be able to withstand the blizzard. We need to find something to block the doors, or everyone will die from the cold. The man commanded to go to the guard room and turn on the heat. The guard tried to explain himself to the landlady about what had happened, but she only replied that he needed to go upstairs and find Xiao Zhou. A familiar silhouette walked beside the guard. He asked, apologizing for disturbing him. A girl in a medical robe stood next to the guard who had been saved from the monster. She asked the man to see what was going on outside instead of worrying about the patient. At that body temperature, he's still alive. The girl mentioned the nickname Cryogenic Guy. This name seems to have been given to him by witnesses to the incident. The girl is recording her notes on a tape recorder. Record 409, male patient, 20 to 25 years old, suspected symptoms of poisoning. Vital signs abnormal. Body temperature about 10 degrees Celsius, but pulse and nerve reflexes without abnormalities. Truly an amazing phenomenon, thought the girl. This case seemed to interest her greatly. The centrifuge emitted a signal that it was finished. The blood separation is complete. Interesting. It seems the girl had never seen anything like this before. The appearance of the blood before centrifugation is not different from normal. But afterward, some blue impurities are separated. Blood analysis will take some time. The doctor continues to observe the external characteristics of the patient. If you do not look closely, you can take it for veins, but it is more like an allergic reaction. Suddenly, as if after an electric shock, the guy opened his eyes and jumped up from the bunk. The girl looked at him completely indifferently, noting that he was awake. The guy began to ask about what had happened. The doctor only coldly advised Mo not to move at the moment. He asks in bewilderment about who she is. She grins and lights a fire with a lighter to light a cigarette. The most common unlicensed doctor doesn't sound very reassuring, but for lack of an alternative, that will do. The girl wouldn't reveal her name. She only asked to be called Doc Joe. The doctor asked with great curiosity about how exactly the guy ended up in such a situation. Dr. Joe admitted that she had never seen such specimens before in her life, and asked her to tell what had happened in the basement. The girl admitted that she was now very interested in the guy. For what purpose exactly, it is not difficult to guess. Brooklyn. The temperature outside is minus 29 degrees Celsius, continuing to drop. The lowest body temperature is 13 and 7/10 degrees. This is the minimum temperature that has been recorded in a person's lifetime. With this temperature, the body's cells begin to break down. However, temperatures below 32 degrees can lead to atrial fibrillation. This is called hypothermia. The girls took out the thermometer lying in Mo's mouth, saying that the time had passed. She added that the guy could look at the measurement himself too. It was a miracle he was still alive. 11 and 5/10 degrees was a temperature incompatible with life. The guy wondered if it was because of his ability. Could it be dangerous and making him worse? However, there was no time to think about it now. It was necessary to finish with all this quickly. The girl held the cigarette in her teeth, relaxed and leisurely taking new puffs. Mo's foot gets on the floor, but coming into contact with something wet, pulls away in the other direction. The guy feels like he's experiencing a sense of déjà vu. The doctor says he's too weak right now. However, she didn't care much about that. The girl seems to have already guessed what's going on with him. She didn't want to beat around the bush, so she asked him directly if he had superpowers. He was taken aback. How did she guess? Is it really that obvious, or does she know more? Mo doesn't have time to chat with her right now. He asks if she's decided to play doctor, to which Doc Joe replied that she shouldn't be underestimated at all. The guy realized that as soon as he recovered, he should get the hell out of this place right away and continue on with the plan. The doctor, sipping a cigarette, asks if the patient is doing well. She sees that he's feeling bad again. No matter how hard the guy tries, he can't use his superpowers right now. Given past experience, he knew it was about to start. Got to get over himself and do something. A familiar silhouette walked leisurely into the medical office. The man was a white-haired gang leader that Mo had met before. The man said that they needed to see what Dr. Joe would show them. The door of office number 509 closed. Something was about to happen. The girl calmly continued to smoke a cigarette. The guy, on the other hand, sat on the floor and didn't know what to expect. The guy screamed from not understanding what was happening around him right now. Jo clenched the cigarette in her teeth. Even she had already realized that she was in a mess. She held out a hand to the guy with an offer to help him to his feet. Mo wondered what was going on outside. The doctor said he would understand if he thought about it on his own. The guy immediately asked her to explain the situation. The girl didn't mind telling what she knew. She slowly put her hand to his ear and quietly told him that if he wanted to live, he needed to do what she said. She told him to close his eyes and pretend like he was dead. The boy obeyed, for he had no other choice. Someone presses the button to open the doors. However, this is exactly what Dr. Jo was waiting for. A silhouette of a familiar man walks into the office. It's Lou DeLong. Mo will meet him in the future we've already seen. He asked me to forgive him for disturbing him. He turns to the doctor, to which she answers him with a counter question about what he needs already. The man wondered if they could come in, and if the doctor didn't mind, she let them in. Mo continued to lie there without moving, pretending he was dead. The blonde-haired man knew the guy from apartment 409 was here now and was taking an open interest in him. The ringleader smirked and said he was sorry the guy had passed away. Brooklyn, the temperature continued to drop rapidly. It's already minus 40 degrees Celsius. Boiler room. Two co-workers discussed that one of the thugs used to watch his father fire up the boiler when he was younger and thought he couldn't be as good as him. But now, looking back, he realizes that his father... Before he can finish his speech, the other guy interrupts him, saying that it's just a low temperature, and when it returns to normal, he won't have to feel sorry for his old man anymore. The guy asks the boss if he thinks things will be back to normal. He doesn't seem to be sure himself. But it used to be that information from the government came in every 20 minutes. Now that the internet is down, the government has apparently given up. This cooling could be God's punishment for all the sins of mankind. The guard claimed injustice because somehow God doesn't punish people like Lou DeLong. The bandit says that he is now the ruler of the place because he has created a very harmonious, in his opinion, order, which now everyone is obliged to observe in order to avoid trouble. However, in fact, he simply ordered his men to take out all the food from the apartments. Otherwise, the heating would be cut off, the guard revealed. The bandit smirked and wondered, isn't that the perfect plan? Quid pro quo. That's the way this world works. Old Joe really wanted to punch the man for saying that. It's not fair that a freak like that doesn't get punished for his sins. Everyone will reap the rewards if they break the order brought by the man. Lou mentioned that the guy from apartment 409 had left this world, sarcastically expressing pity for the situation. Mr. Mo. Old Joe couldn't believe what he was hearing. After all, it was Mo who had saved him from the monster in that very basement. At the same time, in the medical office, Dr. Joe tells the guy that he can come to the office as soon as he's done. Mo replies that the doctor will probably have to wait for him for a while. For some reason, he has a lot of trouble getting dressed. With great difficulty, he does pull on a medical gown. Feeling very tremulous and weak, he approaches Dr. Joe. The doctor wonders if he knows how long he has spent in this state. From Mo's point of view, it's been about a couple hours, but the doctor coldly replies to him that it's been 6 days. Horrified at how much time has been lost and that so much has already happened, the guy realizes that the bandits have already taken over everything. The girl informs him that Lou controls the entire heating system. His condition, either people give him food or the ringleader turns off their heat. She continues, saying that several families have been forced to go outside to find sustenance. But now going outside is very dangerous, and all the brave people who went outside are probably no longer with us. A memory flashed through the boy's mind of who this Lou DeLong was and what he was capable of. He's always been nothing but a vile animal. Mo asked the doctor if there is any way to heal his body. The girl grinned with a cigarette in her teeth, took a drag, and replied that there is a way, but it's not that simple. Only she has a few conditions, for she is an unusual doctor and works at a loss to herself. Exhaling a huge puff of smoke, Dr. Joe asks if the guy accepts the offer she just made. Mo wonders about the specific terms, but says he'll do anything. It's in his best interest to accept, even if the price is high, with his life on the line. In response, the girl walks determinedly up to the guy and takes him by the chin, informing him with a smile that he will now be her lab rat. She assures the guy that he shouldn't worry, as her research won't do Mo himself any harm. Like she said, she's very much interested in him. Feeling a hand on his cheek, he replies that he agrees to Dr. Joe's proposal. She told him that she had discovered he had some unusual substance in his blood, but it was still unclear what exactly it was. These substances absorb heat radiation. They help the body convert that radiation into energy, which it uses for superpowers. This happens when the body is short on calories. However, the body will remain in this state until a certain amount of energy is absorbed. To put it simply, Mo's body is experiencing hunger, so he doesn't have the energy and ability to utilize his abilities. Mo clarifies whether he needs to eat several times more, to which Dr. Joe replies in the affirmative. But she doesn't have that much food. She needs to get it from somewhere else. The guy remembered that he had been preparing for this moment, replied that he had an idea and that the doctor shouldn't worry about it. As he passed the stairwells, Mo thought about the fact that by having time to go to the store, he had provided himself with some sort of safety cushion. He was glad that he was prepared for something he couldn't have anticipated. Seeing the bandits near the apartments, he thought that getting to the apartment would be a huge achievement. And so he's already at the coveted door leading to his haven, walking right in. He presses the fingerprint scanner, the door opens, nothing unexpected. What he saw inside shocked him. The entire apartment was covered in frost. Almost all of his supplies were iced over and the heating had been turned off. Such a temperature would easily kill any living thing, let alone plants. This is no longer an apartment, but an ice castle resembling a freezer. Suddenly, a box of chocolate catches my eye, and it's full of calories. The same chocolate that the guy used his life to get for his beloved. The bad memories of Xiaoming rushed into Mo's head like a sea tide. Next time, he should buy a different company's chocolate so that he will never think of it again. He takes a bite but realizes that nothing changes. It's not enough. He'll have to eat more. Some animal desire takes over. He's unable to resist it. Mo, like a wild animal, greedily pounces on the chocolate and eats not one bar at a time, but several at once, practically without chewing them. He is seized by the feeling of standing under the scorching sun, a very warm feeling. All he feels is that it's delicious, and the realization that he doesn't have the strength to control his beastly appetite. Suddenly, the two bandits we already know appear on the doorstep. They are surprised that the door to the apartment is open because the boss warned that the tenant has gone to the next world. The boss wanted to cut off the kid's finger to open this door, says one of the bandits. Did it just open by itself? The guys obviously didn't know what they were dealing with. The red-haired one noticed that there were a lot of supplies in this apartment. At the same time, Mo had already finished off enough chocolate to generate energy, and even more than he needed. The bandit saw the silhouette of a guy in the darkness, but who was standing in front of him and whether this person opened the door was unclear. Meanwhile, Dr. Joe had finished a full analysis of Mo's condition. What's going on inside him? An active state, a reverse process, affecting neural activity. In this state, if he gained too much glycogen, something terrible would happen. One of the bandits was shouting that everything in this apartment was theirs now, but he didn't know what awaited them yet. But Mo was already unstoppable, just like Dr. Joe said. The glycogen caused a certain reaction. The guy was out of control. Up to this point, the guys had gone to clean out every apartment on the floor. They started with apartment 401. Two young men said that 80% of the people who didn't come home just froze to death. Getting high on the action, they took a lockpick to the lock. They inserted it and, by some simple manipulation, opened the door. The door opened. The boys shrieked with joy and went inside. They had their own ritual. They bumped each other with their fists, showing the pleasure of what was happening. The apartment contained water, food, and money, just what they needed. Next, apartment number 402, the plan of action is exactly the same. Lockpick, break in, grab supplies. The door opens, the bandits see the same thing, food, water, and money. The red-haired man remarks that at this rate they will soon be rich. Everything is going smoothly. The next apartment, the plan is exactly the same, all according to the worked-out scheme. Only this time it turned out that the apartment was empty, but it did not prevent them from rejoicing at the successful break-in. Apartment 404, all according to plan, a lockpick, a break-in, and something's wrong. Maybe there's some kind of mistake in this apartment. Error 404, apartment not found. The guys said they understood and went to rob the next apartment 72 hours ago, the scene of the accident. Dr. Joe looks at the remains of something incomprehensible after the situation with the guard and the monster. She wonders what happened here and is determined to find out. Some substance of unclear origin has caught the girl's attention. She gathered the material into a bag to take away for research. In her side vision, the doctor noticed a security camera. Most likely, she would have to watch the footage and find out the truth for herself. At this time, danger signals were being transmitted over the public address system, along with requests for rational distribution of provisions. The signal was very loud, so loud that absolutely everyone could hear it. In one of the apartments stood a couple with a small child. The child didn't understand what was going on. Mrs. Fang was also in her apartment. The broadcasting on the television had stopped. The bandits were carrying the security guard, who was unconscious, to some back room. The red-haired man noted that the old man was quite heavy. His colleague reminded him that the boss had ordered him to keep an eye on the boiler as well. Now, the whole building must pay him a small tribute in exchange for heating the apartments. That was his condition. One of the neighbors, a bearded uncle with a bottle, stands in the doorway and says that the old man seems to have lost his mind. A younger coworker says it doesn't sound like his partner at all. Lu DeLong addresses the residents on speakerphone, asking for attention to his message, to make everyone realize the seriousness of the situation. He put his finger on the lever responsible for operating the speakerphone through the public address system. Bandit said he would just turn off everyone's heat to conserve resources and turned off the comms. Mo's dark side, which gives him superpowers, got in front of the young man's light side, which was left somewhere behind. The light side of the guy didn't know what to expect from this dialogue. The dark side of the guy starts the conversation by asking if the light side hates him. It seems the last good thing left in the guy was under lock and key. Nevertheless, that part of the personality came in bewildered, not realizing who he was talking about. Lu DeLong. The darkness in the guy spoke that name. Did the light side hate him? That name triggered everything negative that could exist in the guy. His eyes turned red and an incredible burst of energy was ready to burst out. The question seemed to be more of a rhetorical one. Everything good that was in the guy vanished in an instant, leaving only hatred and a brutal desire to deal with this bandit. Mo lifted the man into the air. He was simply overwhelmed with negative emotions. This seemed to be the end of all the good that was left in him until now. No more being kind to those who didn't deserve it, the darkness had won. In place of the unknown guy, Lu DeLong himself immediately appeared. Mo clearly saw and heard exactly him. He said that human meat tasted like beef, except that he didn't eat it. Lu DeLong's gonna pay for this. Mo threw the unknown man far away from him with all his might. The guy flew out of the window and swiftly fell down until he reached the asphalt. At the bottom was a group of people with backpacks. It looked like they were just exploring the area. One of the group said that the man fell as far as the 4th floor. No one understood how or why it happened. The green-haired guy was terrified, seeing Mo tearing everything apart on the way to his goal. He just walked forward with absolute confidence, filled with the power of hatred. Bandit didn't know what exactly was in front of him, a monster or an alien, but it was obvious that it was no longer human. There was a bright glow around him, similar to the northern lights that the entire city had seen before the ice apocalypse. The bandit realized that he had no chance against this something. Nevertheless, he decided to give it a try. He sprinted and swung his golf club, but Mo was unstoppable. He'd seen Lu DeLong's face everywhere, and in this case too. The guy ran right by the bandit. It looks like nothing happened, but it's just a warm-up. Stick shot, no hit. It's like Mo vanished into thin air and the club just touched the air. The bandit didn't even have time to notice any movement on the guy's part. He turned around to find his location, but even with his eyes, it was almost impossible to keep up with him. The young man, who was overwhelmed with hatred, was ostentatiously calling out to the bandit to amuse himself. He seemed to enjoy taunting him. While the guy was trying to hit Mo with the club, the guy would just walk away in the opposite direction, making no effort at all. Once again, the club strike, piercing only the air. The young man didn't care at all about the bandit's extra movements. Scrolling through the man's words in his head that if you don't want to depend on the strong, you will become the prey of the weak, Mo realized the full potential of his abilities. For a split second, it was as if the guy was absolutely happy with what was happening and was genuinely enjoying it. Just a blink of an eye, a single second, a quick dash, and super speed, Mo was forever changed. He didn't hesitate, he wasn't afraid. He knew what he wanted and marched on towards his goal. The bandit didn't have time to realize what was happening while Mo's hand was cutting through space at supersonic speed like a very sharp sword. Someone suddenly appeared on the doorstep of the apartment. It seemed to be someone familiar. A girl's voice called out to the guy and made him briefly return to reality. It was Xiao Ming. Mo turned around to see if he was right in his guesses. What was it that she wanted from him? Xiao Ming pointed a gun with unknown contents towards the guy. Just a second and the dart dug into the young man's abdomen. It was Dr. Zhou. She assured that there was nothing wrong with the dart, just insulin. It worked very quickly. The lad's body went limp and began to slowly slide down to meet the ground. The doctor caught the object of her interest. She used the insulin to break down the extra calories. It worked. However, just as the guy started to tumble downward under the effects of the insulin, and her view of the apartment came into view, she could see the room. The entire room was littered with pallets of sprouts of various plants. It really looked very strange, even suspicious. Dr. Zhou really wanted to know what was going on here.